Well, then let's just bring him on in. I mean, the hell of it. I'll fade the music out. We'll get talking a little. Oh, you know what did Dave Chappelle say? If they're Mac, tell them we're PC. If they're PC, tell them we're Mac. And if they have both, tell them we're Linksys. If they have all three, tell them to go. Whatever. Bryce, my friend, you can find him on Twitter at Motor City Hoops. How are you, partner?
What's up, Anthony? How are you doing this morning?
We're good. We're just battling some technical difficulties because that's technology. It works when you love it. You love it when it works, but then sometimes it doesn't. But my man, I'm stressed. I am stressed when it comes to this team. I don't know what is going on here. I don't even know where to begin. They go to France. I appreciated NBA France talking about the three-time champion Detroit Pistons, like that hadn't happened like 20 years ago and more. But this team, first quarter of that Milwaukee game, first off, it's the team's playing bad because they're playing so many games. Then they get some rest, and it's like, oh, they played so bad and they came out lackluster in the first quarter because they're not, they had all this time off. What is wrong with this team?
And the defense is awful. Like, there's no way, and anybody that watches them, if you look at statistics, whatever you want to do, like, I'm not telling anybody anything they don't already know that follows this team. It's really bad, and it's disappointing. I didn't get to watch the game live because I had a high school game. I watched it yesterday morning, and it was just like clip after clip, Anthony, like bad communication, don't get matched up in transition, don't make the rotation. If they do get a miss, they give up an offensive rebound. And like at a certain point, it's like, man, like the Bucks are hitting a lot of shots, but I don't think you make anybody uncomfortable. And so it just seems like teams are in a complete flow offensively. And what I tweeted out yesterday, Anthony, was I don't think this team does anything even average defensively. That's my problem is we haven't seen improvement throughout the season. I'm not expecting them to be good. I knew this team wasn't going to be good, but I thought we'd see some improvement on the defensive end, and they're not good at anything. They're not even average at any aspect on the defensive end.
That's troubling because full Kool-Aid disclaimer here, I expected them to win more than 30 games this year. And then when Cade Cunningham got hurt, it was like, okay, well, this will open up some opportunities for somebody else. I need to know what your evaluation to this point has been of the individual players on this team, because I really like Jaden Ivey a lot, and I think that is an NBA level talent with NBA level athleticism. I really like Jalen Duren a lot. I can't get enough of that guy. I want those two to play 100 minutes a night, even though there's only 48 minutes in a game. Like I need more of that. Everybody else, outside of Bojan Bogdanovic, who I feel is an NBA shooter, that's what he does. He's a professional shooter of the basketball. Good for him. Everybody else, I just feel like has regressed.
Yeah, so I would agree with the rookies. And Jaden Ivey takes a lot of heat. And, I constantly get reminded that so the only access I have to Pistons fan is Twitter, right? Because I don't live in Detroit. So I don't get to interact with a fan on the street or at a restaurant. And so but I will tell you this, like Pistons Twitter is very, very critical of Jaden Ivey. And there are aspects of Jaden Ivey's games that you can be critical of. We just talked about defense. He's very, very bad defensively, Anthony. He has to get a lot better. There's flashes where it's like, okay, we need to see that more consistently next season. But offensively, he's been everything I hoped for and maybe even more. Like, I don't understand the criticism of him offensively. There's some other things. Yeah, you can be critical. Obviously, has to improve. Jalen Duren by far exceeded my expectations as a rookie. I had huge long-term ceiling expectations for Jalen Duren. He's been better as a rookie than I expected. Killian has been better, right? Like, he has been better, Anthony, than what we have seen. Is that still like a core piece? Is that a rotation player on a good team? I don't think you can say that with certainty, but it's an improvement. Sadiq Bey is probably the one I'm most worried about right now. And then Isaiah Stewart, I think we've forgotten because we haven't seen him recently a whole lot. He was showing the things we wanted to see from him at the 4. It's just he hasn't got to play that anymore to the injuries and to himself and others.
So if the lineup's completely healthy, and let's just say they don't have 12 wins at this point of the season, let's say everybody's healthy, what would be your starting lineup the way this roster is constructed right now?
Cade, Ivey, Bojan, Stu, and Duren. No question. Like I think that's the starting lineup. I think Jaden Ivey would play even better if he had Cade Cunningham. And I know people are tired of the excuses, and I get it. I understand it. Anthony, Cade Cunningham is not only the best player on this team, he is the leader. He is the vocal leader. He's the maybe Stu's the emotional leader. I don't know, but you take that off a team, any team, let alone a young, inexperienced team that's not very talented to begin with, and that has a lot of trickle down effect. So I do think Jaden Ivey would be better, but that's who I would start. I still think Killian is a guy off the bench. Then you'd have Burks off the bench, Bagley off the bench if he was healthy. I like Livers. Hami, hey, your guy Hami. You were talking about guys that haven't gotten better. Hami has been really good, and he was forgotten, Anthony, and I think he's had a really good month of basketball.
I try to get off the Hammy train because I talk about him, and then Dwane Casey won't play him. And I'm like, Coach Casey obviously isn't listening to the show. Get the guy some minutes. I know that he's not a dynamic three-point threat. I know that defensively he could be better, but he brings great athleticism. He brings great hustle, and the guy is a monster in transition, and he's got that athletic ability that could jump out of the gym and stuff a putback rebound down. I want more Hammy. I don't need him to shoot a bunch of threes. There are other aspects of the game of basketball that can take place that he can be a contributor.
So here's what I think Hami is, and this is true. He's a perfect example of where every member of this team right now is playing in a role one step above what they should be doing. Ivy shouldn't have the usage he does, but he has to because Cade's not there. Boyan shouldn't be the number one option on a team, but he is. All of these things. I think Hami is like the 11th guy on a team. Maybe he's not in your too deep rotation, but he's perfect when somebody needs a rest, when somebody's injured for a couple games, whatever it is. You can play him at the 3. You can play. I think he's a small ball 4. I think that's a nice little spot for him. You can't do it consistently. Maybe you can't even play him in the playoffs, but you need regular season guys. I think next year I would like to see Hami stay around when hopefully this team is more talented overall, and he's like that 11th guy that fills in whenever someone's not available.
Have we basically buried ourselves in this Wemby or bust sort of, at least we're terrible this year, but we're going to get Wemby, and that's going to change everything. And it's like, that's really not. The average age of this team is still 12 years old without Bojan out there who's 100. So, it's still a very young team. One guy in Wemby, can one guy change a franchise? Absolutely. Just look at LeBron James. Am I saying that Victor Wembanyama is going to be LeBron James? No, I'm not saying that. We'll wait and see. But if they don't get Wembanyama, then what happens? Because I feel like all of our chips are in on Wemby, and it's like you got a 14% chance of winning the lottery. The guy's going number 1 overall. If you don't win the lottery, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, and I'm super high on Scoot Henderson, and I would take Scoot Henderson at number 2 if that's where the Pistons land. But there's definitely questions like, what do you do then? Because now you have Cade, Jaden Ivey, Scoot Henderson, who I still don't think Jaden Ivey's a primary ball handler, but you have 3 guards essentially that all at times need to have the ball in their hands. And as we know, the game of basketball is played with 1 basketball, not 3. You go beyond those 2, and there's some interesting guys. There's some names out there: Brandon Miller, Cam Whitmore, the Thompson twins, all of that. But no, nobody's just. Victor Wembanyama is a generational prospect. And I want to emphasize prospect. I'm not saying he's going to be generational, but he is 7'5" with skills and the defensive impact. That's generational just based on his athletic profile and his size. Nobody else in this draft is generational in that way. That term gets overused. I don't think it's overused with Wemby because of that. But you're right. Here's the thing, though, Anthony. I think what's gotten lost a little bit is there is still lots of flexibility and possibilities for Troy Weaver to improve this roster. Now, it's on Troy to do that, right? Plenty of cap space. There's trades going to be available, all of that stuff. So there are means to make this roster better. It's just if he can capitalize on it this offseason.
Do you see the Pistons making a move before the trade deadline, which is coming up pretty quick now on the 9th day of February? So there's some moving and shaking already. Rui Hachimura, who I don't know where that name came from, and people are like, oh, we got to get Rui to the Pistons. I'm like, why would you add what in the world? I wanted to slam my head against the wall. That doesn't fit. That's not what we need. Come on here. We don't need more volume shooters that play lackluster or no defense at all. But do you see them making a move before the deadline?
I don't see any major moves. I think it would be premature, and again, we just talked about this, right? It's only a 14% chance at Wemby, but I don't know that you want to make a move until you know where you're at in the lottery. So I think you can wait to make a big move. Now, like if OG Anunoby is legit available and the Pistons have the right assets to make that move, like obviously you want to look into it. I think what we see, I think Nerlens Noel either gets moved or bought out. We had Keith Smith on the Pistons Pulse this week. If you guys want to go listen, drop every Tuesday, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, with my co-host Amari Sankofa from the Detroit Free Press, and he doesn't think there's a market for Nerlens Noel, a trade market. He thinks he's a buyout market guy. You know, Alec Burks maybe. Boyan's going to be the hot name. I think you only trade Boyan if you get like 2 first-round picks or a first-round pick and a really intriguing young prospect. But I don't think you just trade him for peanuts.
No, you can't, especially if Rui got 3 second-rounders. Like, there's no way you could let Bogey go for anything less. And it's like, well, why would the Lakers make that move? You know, they need shooting. Why not go after Boyan? They just don't have the capital. They've spent. When is the next time? I don't even know the next time they're going to have a draft pick. And to be honest with you, when in the upcoming free agent class, I don't see anybody jumping off the paperwork that looks like, oh, this is a guy at 30, 32 years old at $30 million a year I want to spend a lot of money on. Like, I don't know, man. I'm feeling real grim right now, Bryce.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like, that cap space is probably going to be used in either like a sign and trade type thing, or a way to acquire more draft picks, which I know it's like now you're just adding more young players to an already young roster. But yeah, like I've went through the free agency list also, and it's not like there's a guy like I like Kyle Kuzma. I think he's a really good player. He's probably going to get like $30 million, and I'm not sure I would sign Kyle Kuzma for $30 million. Not for the Pistons, you know. So, you know, the name I loved until he got his extension was Andrew Wiggins. I thought Andrew Wiggins fit perfect into this roster, sliding into the 3 spot, you know, in the starting lineup that I outlined earlier. But obviously that's not going to happen either because he signed his extension with the Warriors. So again, that's what I'm saying. Like, there are avenues, there is flexibility for Troy Weaver to improve this roster, and it's going to be really interesting to see how he goes about actually doing that.
When we take a look at this team now as a whole, right? Because like I told you earlier, I was in on the 30 wins idea, which was just preposterous. If everything stays the same, right? No draft, no free agency, no nothing. Could this team at 100% health, could they win 30 games?
Yeah, I think 30 wins was probably the higher end outcome. I think I was around there coming into this season because like that doesn't put you in the play-in game or the play-in tournament. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably full health, reasonable health. No team goes through the whole season without like guys missing some games. But yeah, that's probably about as talented as this roster was.
What do they do at the head coaching position?
I knew this question was coming when you texted me last night. Here's what I'll say. The defense has been bad. I would love to know who actually runs the defense because we've gotten reports that last year it was Rex Kalamian, assistant coach, that Jerome Allen was taking over this year, assistant coach Jerome Allen, who a lot of people want Dwane Casey to get fired and Jerome Allen hired. And I'm like, well, if we're all pissed about the defense, shouldn't we be putting some heat on the guys that are actually scheming the defense? I also think the players should take more responsibility in how bad the defense is, just for the record. I've always said that I think Coach Casey is doing what you want from a coach in this situation. We never hear anything about locker room stuff with the Pistons. We never get stuff that leaves the organization. Everything stays in-house, and I think that speaks to Weaver and Coach Casey. I do think he does a good job developing these guys as young men and professionals. Here's what I've always said. If he loses the locker room, if he loses their ears, if what he's saying is starting to fall on deaf ears, then maybe it's time to look at moving him into the front office and finding a new voice.
Wow, moving into the front office. I'd be good with moving him anywhere. I mean, just outside of the organization as a whole. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, look, man, nice guy, wonderful human being, great causes that he's a part of. This ain't working. And I don't know, like his win percentage is that of Matt Patricia's with the Lions. And it's like, we we're ready to, launch Matt Patricia into the sun, but we won't touch Dwane Casey. And it's like, dude, we got to go. We got to move on. We got to get this train rolling here.
But what you said about him is why I think he would be good in the front office or what some role with the organization still is like he is one of like you talk to anybody around the NBA, he is one of the most respected coaches. Like so I just think there's a role for him in the organization. Like it just may be as the head coach is no longer that role again because like kids are different these days, Anthony. I was just talking to someone about this last night as coaching the high school game. Like kids are different. You have to relate to them different. You have to speak to them different. It's no like knock on Coach Casey or any other coach that's struggling with that, but maybe it's not working as well. Maybe he doesn't know how to relate to this generation as much. Like I'll tell you this, I love Jaden Ivey. Like I think he's hard to deal with. Like you can see the demeanor and the attitude and the body language stuff at times. And so you may have to get the right coach in that knows how to handle him and massage that relationship. And so that's what I still think there's value from him and having Dwane Casey in the organization, but maybe it's time for somebody with some new offensive schemes, new defensive schemes, and a new voice in general. I wouldn't do it right now. I would just wait till the offseason and then evaluate that.
I know it took the Celtics, what, 6-7 years to get Tatum and Brown and Marcus Smart to get them to the level that they are at. And it's unfortunately, we have to preach the P word, patience, even more so to Pistons fan. Yeah, Bryce, how was the high school hoop season going? I had the pleasure of watching Imani Bates last night, so you can imagine what that Eastern Michigan coaching staff is going through, getting a guy go for 43, 29 consecutive points. They're 4-16 as a team.
I say, did they even? It's funny. Like I track all that stuff because I do a lot of NBA draft stuff now. I write for a website, Draft Digest, and so I follow all of that. And it's funny, like with Imani, I don't even look to see if Eastern Michigan wins. I just essentially look to see if he got buckets or not because that's kind of what he. So did they even win in that game?
No, Eastern lost by 5.
Okay. Yeah. He can score it, man. He can. He's going to be a very, very interesting draft prospect because it's like, what's his role going to be in the NBA? And I know people say, well, he can get buckets. Well, it's a little bit easier to get buckets like that when you have ultimate freedom. Like, is an NBA franchise going to just tell Imani Bates, shoot whatever shot you want?
Oh, I
don't know. So
he was hoisting last night. I mean, the shot selection, he made them all in the first half, which was great. Second half, it cost him the game. Flat out. Like, I mean, you're chucking a dagger 3 from 40 feet for what reason? Up 6? Like, you're nuts.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, Anthony, is then – so now you translate that to an NBA team who's going to say you don't have that freedom and you're only going to take catch-and-shoot threes, and it's like, oh, well, those are better looks. Well, yeah, but his flow and rhythm might not be the same. Like, it's just a mentality. It's a confidence. It's a comfortability of being in that role. And then his role may change more drastically going to the NBA than any other prospect we're evaluating right now. And that's what makes it really hard to know what he's going to be. And he may thrive. Maybe he's the next Jordan Clarkson, but it's really tough to tell how somebody's going to, be able to translate to that. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting draft, and I definitely follow Imani. Just like I say, seeing how he's scoring the ball every night.
He is Bryce Simon. Find him on Twitter at Motor City Hoops. Bryce, my man, as always, an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time, partner. Have a great week, my friend.
Yep, you as well. Always enjoy it.